Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff, hope and human rights.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is, and we've got a really interesting mix of
We
sources.
do.
We've got articles about like what hope even means, a whole profile on Elon Musk, which should be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Some like really intense reports from Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch.
Heavy hitters.
Yeah, and we even pulled some pages from the White Helmets and the UN.
Wow.
So our mission, if you want to call it that, is to really look at how hope kind of shows up everywhere.
It's everywhere.
From like personal resilience all the way up to like global action, you know?
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's not just this fuzzy feel-good concept. We're going to actually break it down psychologically, see how it fuels individuals like Elon Musk, and then look at how it plays out in organized movements trying to tackle these huge global challenges.
Yeah, I'm already intrigued by this whole mix. We've got like the nitty-gritty of hope theory, but then also the like boots on the ground reality of the white helmets.
Yeah.
But maybe we should start with the basics. Like, what even is hope? Not just like a word, but as this force in our lives.
Right. We need to define our terms. And one quote that really stood out to me, going beyond a simple dictionary definition, it's from the philosopher Václav Havel.
Okay.
He said, "Hope is a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope or we don't."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's not about if things are objectively good or bad. It's about our internal orientation towards them.
Okay. That's deep. So even if the world feels like it's totally falling apart, like hope is still possible.
Exactly.
I like that. But how do we even cultivate that? Like, especially when we're surrounded by negativity.
Right. That's where psychology comes in.
Yeah.
So one of our sources, Snyder's hope theory, breaks hope down into three parts: goals, pathways, and agency. And, think about a time where you felt stuck. Did you maybe not have a clear goal? Did you not see a way forward? Or did you doubt your ability to, act on anything? That's where understanding these three things can actually empower you.
Okay. So let's unpack those.
Okay.
Goals, I feel like, are pretty straightforward. It's like, what are we aiming for, right? Like, what's the vision?
Exactly.
But pathways, what does that even mean in this context?
So pathways are about seeing the multiple ways that you can actually get to that goal.
Okay.
It's not about just having a plan A, but also having a plan B, a plan C, maybe even a plan D.
Okay.
So it keeps you flexible.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from being discouraged when those obstacles, inevitably come up.
So it's like having options.
Exactly.
And being adaptable. Okay,
Yeah.
I get that. But then agency. Agency feels a little trickier to like grasp.
It does. It's really about the belief in your ability to make things happen. It's that feeling of control over your actions and your choices, even when circumstances are really tough. Without agency, even if you have the best goals and the clearest pathways, you're not going to get anywhere.
Okay, so it's like having a car. That's your pathways.
Right.
You know where you want to go. Those are your goals.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need to believe that you can drive it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That's the agency.
And this all ties back to this difference between realistic optimism
Okay.
versus what some people call false hope.
Mm-hmm.
Realistic optimism means acknowledging the challenges, but still believing that it's possible to overcome them through action and effort.
Okay, so it's like clear-eyed but determined.
Exactly.
Okay.
But one of our sources actually presented a darker view of hope.
Oh, right.
And it was Nietzsche. He argued that hope can actually prolong suffering.
Oh, wow, okay.
He was worried that, clinging to hope might prevent us from taking action or even facing harsh realities.
Yeah.
It could be a way of avoiding the present moment.
Okay. So hope can be both like this motivator, but also a trap. That's kind of a complex idea to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that plays out when we start looking at individuals like Elon Musk, who our next source is about.
Yeah, Musk is a very fascinating case study because he embodies this idea of using hope to drive innovation and tackle global challenges. Yeah. Whether it's, SpaceX colonizing Mars or Tesla revolutionizing transportation or all his other ventures. He's not afraid to dream big and then work tirelessly to make those dreams a reality.
Yeah, this Marbella magazine article I was reading, I mean, it practically paints him as a superhero, using technology to save the world and all that. But,
Right.
I mean, some people might say that, him focusing on Mars is just a distraction from the problems that we're facing here on Earth.
Right.
Like, how do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, that's a valid point. And it highlights this tension between focusing on the really big picture, long-term solutions like those Musk pursues, versus addressing the immediate crises that demand our attention now.
Right. So maybe it's not an either situation.
Yeah.
Maybe we need both, you know? We
Yeah.
need these visionaries like Musk pushing the
Big
boundaries,
guy.
but we also need the people on the ground dealing with the issues of today.
Exactly. And that brings us perfectly to a group that's doing just that, the White Helmets.
Yes,
Their website is heartbreaking,
it is.
but incredibly powerful. They're risking their lives every
Yeah.
day rescuing people from the rubble in war-torn Syria.
Yeah, their work is truly inspiring. I mean, they've saved like over 128,000 lives. Think about that, the
Yeah.
impact that has on individuals, on families, on communities. But what really struck me reading about them was that they're not just focused on like pulling people out of the rubble, they're also providing healthcare, and support for displaced people.
It's this holistic approach to hope. It's not just survival. It's actually rebuilding lives
Yeah.
and offering a glimmer of light in the midst of so much darkness. And speaking of large-scale efforts to build hope, we have this Great Green Wall Initiative.
Yes. This project is unbelievable. It's like this 8,000-kilometer band of trees and vegetation planned across the entire width of Africa. I mean, it's fighting desertification, aims to transform the lives of millions of people. It just feels like such a testament to what we can do when we work together and like believing in our ability to heal the planet.
Yeah, it shows how hope can manifest on this massive scale,
Mm.
bringing nations and communities together to tackle this shared challenge.
Mm.
And it's just a reminder that even facing these global crises, we can choose to create a more hopeful and sustainable future.
Yeah. This feels like a good place to kind of pause for now. I feel like we've already covered so much.
We have.
From like the psychology behind hope to these individuals and organizations that are just doing such incredible work.
Yeah. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll go even deeper into the world of organized action for human rights.
Yeah.
We'll look at the work of Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch
Mm-hmm.
and really examine the complexities of progress and even setbacks in the fight for a more just and equitable world.
All right. Looking forward to that. So we've seen how hope kind of works on a personal level and even on these huge scales, like with the Great Green Wall.
Right.
But what about when it comes to like organized movements, these groups that are dedicated to fighting for human rights? That's where I think it gets really interesting.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely adds another layer of complexity to it. And one of our sources, Amnesty International, they give us a great window into this. They're fighting for equality and freedom through all these campaigns they run.
Yeah.
From crisis response in Gaza to indigenous justice all over the world. I mean, they're giving a voice to the voiceless and holding those in power accountable.
It's almost overwhelming looking at like the sheer number of issues that they're tackling. But what really struck me looking at their website and their reports is that they're not just highlighting the problems, they're also showcasing the wins.
Right.
Like specific cases where their efforts led to prisoners being released or laws being changed.
Exactly. It's crucial to see those victories, especially when we're confronted with just how many human rights abuses are happening globally.
Yeah.
These wins remind us that change is possible, that our actions, however small, can actually make a difference. But we can't shy away from the darker side of it either.
Right, yeah. The Human Rights Watch reports, they really lay it all out there.
They do.
It's easy to get caught up in those inspiring stories, but then you read about like the Houthi detentions in Yemen,
Right.
where they're just like arbitrarily detaining people, even UN staff and NGO workers, and just disappearing them.
It's awful.
It's terrifying and a stark reminder of the danger and the urgency of this work.
It is. And it underscores the courage of those people who are actually working on the front lines of human rights. We have to remember, these aren't just statistics. These are real people whose lives are being completely upended by conflict, oppression, and violence.
One of the reports that I read that really stuck with me was about the Syrian displacement crisis,
Right.
which has forced millions of people to flee their homes.
Yeah.
The scale of human suffering is really hard to even fathom.
It is.
It makes the work of groups like Human Rights Watch even more vital, I think. Bearing witness, documenting these things, and pushing for accountability.
Absolutely. And amid all these ongoing crises, it's also important to consider the long-term work of rebuilding societies after conflict.
Right.
And addressing the legacies of mass atrocities.
Yeah.
And that's where this concept of transitional justice comes in,
Okay.
which one of our sources, the ICPJ, focuses on.
So it's not just about stopping the harm that's happening right now. It's also about setting the stage for a better future.
Exactly.
How does that actually work in practice?
So transitional justice involves a lot of different mechanisms. Things like truth commissions, sometimes criminal prosecutions, even reparations programs.
Mm-hmm.
It's about acknowledging the harm that's been done,
Yeah.
holding the perpetrators accountable, providing support for the victims. But ultimately, it's about laying that foundation for a future where these horrible things are less likely to happen again.
Wow. That feels like such a big, massive undertaking. It makes me think about the role of the UN, which also came up in our sources. I mean, they're tasked with dealing with, like, all the world's problems.
Right. And their website, it outlines their mission pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Maintaining peace and security, protecting human rights, delivering humanitarian aid, promoting sustainable development, upholding international law.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But it also provides this framework for, like, global cooperation and action.
Right. It feels like they're not just, like, working at the world. They're trying to, like, empower individuals to get involved. Like with the Sustainable Development Goals, those SDGs we hear about,
Yeah.
and their Act Now campaign. Those feel like more concrete, achievable steps.
They do.
That we can all take, like reducing our footprint or promoting gender equality in our own communities.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we all have a role to play,
Mm-hmm.
that even our small actions can contribute to this larger change.
Mm-hmm.
And that sense of agency, being able to make a difference, that's so crucial for fostering hope
Yeah.
on a personal and a global level.
Okay, so we've seen how hope plays out in these individual actions, these organized movements, these large-scale initiatives like the Great Green Wall and the UN's work.
Right.
But where does that leave us, like the listeners? What are we supposed to do with all this?
It's a good question. It's easy to feel overwhelmed,
Yeah.
maybe even paralyzed by how huge these global challenges are.
Totally.
But remember Snyder's hope theory?
Mm-hmm.
Goals, pathways, agency.
Yeah.
We need to figure out what we care about, explore the different ways that we can actually make a difference, and most importantly, believe in our ability to act.
So it's not about having all the answers. It's about taking that first step, even if it's small.
Exactly. It's about finding what resonates with you. Maybe it's supporting a human rights organization. Maybe it's volunteering in your community, having these difficult conversations with your friends and family about this stuff, or just continuing to learn more about it. But every action, every voice, it adds to this momentum towards a more hopeful future.
I like that reminder. It's easy to get lost in just how big it all is. But change really does start with each of us.
It does. And it's a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
There will be setbacks, there will be moments of despair, but the important thing is to hold on to that spark of hope, that belief that a better world is actually possible, and just keep moving forward.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
We've explored all the complexities of hope, seen it in action, and confronted some harsh realities.
Indeed. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dives, I want to leave you with a question to think about. How will you choose to nurture and act up the hope that resonates within you?
That question really stays with you, huh?
It does.
It's like a call to action, almost.
It is.
We've spent all this time, exploring hope, breaking it down, seeing it out there in the world.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah, it's like we've been given this toolkit, with Snyder's hope theory, those examples from the White Helmets, Amnesty International. But the real work starts when we actually apply those tools to the problems we see, and even in our own lives.
And I think what's been really interesting is, like, there's no one right way to be hopeful, is there?
No, not at all. And the sources we looked at today show that so well. Like Elon Musk, with his whole vision of, like, living on Mars someday.
Right.
That might totally resonate with someone who's, like, into technology and all that.
Yeah.
But for someone else, hope might be found in the work of, like, a human rights lawyer fighting to get someone out of prison.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's this whole spectrum of hope out there.
There is.
From those individual acts of kindness all the way to the huge movements pushing for change. And it's about finding our own place in all that, where our passions are, what we're good at, and how we can contribute.
It's about, like, aligning your actions with what you truly believe in. So if you're passionate about the environment, maybe the Great Green Wall makes you want to go plant some trees, or, like, fight for policies that protect our forests. But if you're more fired up about those human rights abuses we talked about, then maybe you'll end up supporting Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch.
I think what I'm taking away from all this is that hope isn't passive.
No.
It's not just sitting around wishing things were different.
Right.
It's about, like, engaging with the world, seeing what needs fixing, and then figuring out, okay, what can I do?
You got it. It's about turning that energy into action. And even the small things can make a difference. Imagine if everyone listening right now decided to, like, donate a few dollars to a cause they believe in, or wrote a letter to their representative about something important to them.
I love that image of the ripple effect. It
Yeah.
reminds us that even our little actions, they're all connected.
They are.
Like we're part of this bigger web of hope. And all our efforts, they add up
To something bigger,
to
yeah.
something bigger. Yeah. A more just, compassionate world, hopefully.
Exactly. And it's not just about what we do out there, but also that inner feeling of hope,
Right.
that belief that things can get better, even when it feels dark. Remember that Václav Havel quote, "Hope is a state of mind."
Mm.
So how do we hold on to that, especially when things are tough?
That's a good question. I think it comes back to those three things from Snyder's theory: goals, pathways, agency.
Mm.
When we feel lost or hopeless, maybe it's because we've lost sight of what we're aiming for, or we can't see a way to get there, or we just don't think we can make a difference.
That's usually it, yeah.
So maybe it's about reconnecting with what really matters to us. What do we value? What do we want to achieve? Then we can start brainstorming those pathways, those ways to contribute, even if they're imperfect.
Exactly. And maybe most importantly, remember your agency,
Yeah.
your ability to make choices, take action, even when things are tough. It's about feeling like you have at least some control over your life and how you impact the world.
That's a great way to put it.
And as we wrap up, just one final thought. Hope isn't this fixed destination. It's a journey. It's all about growing, learning, adapting. There will be times when you doubt, when you feel despair, even anger at how unfair things are.
Yeah.
But it's in those moments that we need to really dig deep, reconnect with what we believe in, and choose to move forward with hope guiding us.
That feels like a really powerful way to end things today. Hope is a choice, it's a commitment, it's something we practice,
I guess.
and it's a journey we're all on together, each of us bringing our own unique things to the table to build a more just, compassionate, hopeful world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and remember, keep diving deep and keep that hope alive.
Keep it alive.